Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. Happy Thursday morning. Hope your morning is off to a great start. My name is Alan. I'm happy to be here as your host today on Leadership Thursday. I currently have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Operating Officer here at ICE and a faculty member in our Fitness Athlete Division. Here on Leadership Thursday, we talk all things practice, management, ownership, small business leadership, and tricks and tips. It is Leadership Thursday, which also means it's Gut Check Thursday. This week's Gut Check Thursday is a little chipper. Starts off on the rower. 100 or 80 calories on the rower, 100 for guys, 80 for ladies, into 80 repetitions of an alternating dumbbell snatch. The recommended weight there is 50 for gentlemen, 35 for ladies. Then into 60 pull-ups, which is probably going to be the decisive factor for most folks in the middle of the workout there. Into 40 power cleans with a weight of 115 for guys, 80 for ladies, and then 20 tall box jumps, height of 30 inches for guys and 24 for ladies. So building up some easy fatigue early on the rower, adding to the fatigue with a dumbbell snatch. Most of us can manage high volume dumbbell snatching. And then again, in the middle there, the pull-ups are going to be the separator. That's where scaling appropriately is going to be your friend. So you're not bogged down doing maybe 60 single pull-ups, something that you can hang with 3, 5, maybe even sets of 10 reps. Something smooth for sets of touch and go or quick singles for the weight on your power clean. And then challenging yourself, even if 30 inches or 24 inches is too high for you, challenging yourself with a tall jump, really work your explosive triple extension power generation under fatigue is the goal with the 20 reps of the box jump at the end there. So most folks are going to be done around 15 to 20 minutes. It's just a matter of if that weight is lighter for you, you're going to move faster. If you're better at pull-ups and high box jumps, you're going to cruise a little bit faster. You're going to see next week, we're going to start announcing the I Got Your 6 competition. It is an online virtual competition through our friends at Warrior Wad. It is a team of 2 with a workout, 3 workouts, a workout every week we're going to publish here. You have until June 30th to do all 3 and submit your scores. We're going to make each one up until the end of the competition, Gut Check Thursday. So you'll see those coming out the next 3 weeks. In the team of 2, the registration, all of the money for the registration goes to support Warrior Wad. So be on the lookout for that post tomorrow. And then we haven't said it yet here officially on the podcast. Big congratulations to ICE faculty member Kelly Benfey for qualifying for the CrossFit Games with her team from Plus 64 CrossFit down in New Zealand. They'll be in Madison, Wisconsin in August, competing in the CrossFit Games at the team division. So make sure you check the TV for Kelly in August. Courses coming your way. We just started a bunch of online courses. The next online course coming your way is going to be Ice Pelvic Online. That'll start July 11th, or Rehab of the Injured Runner Online, also July 11th. And then live courses, we have so many. I'm just going to go off of the next weekend that we have available, June 24th and 25th. Jordan Berry is going to be out on the road for lumbar management in Ardsley, New York. Paul is going to be on the road in Berryville, Virginia for lower quadrant dry needling. Zach Long is going to be in Loveland, Ohio for Fitness Athlete Live. 2 chances at extremity management, one out on the West Coast in Grass Valley, California with Lindsay Huey, or in the Southeast, Rome, Georgia with Mark Gallant. A chance at Older Adult Live in Victor, New York with Julie, and then a chance at Total Spine with Britt, and that will be in Candler, North Carolina, which is just outside of Asheville. PTonice.com, all of our courses, all of our free resources, podcasts, newsletters, you name it, it's on PTonice.com, so check that out. Today's topic, continuing our Medicare series. So this is the 3rd in the series. If you're just joining now, you're going to want to go back 2 weeks for part 2 and 2 weeks before that for part 1. So part 1, we defined what actually is Medicare. Last week, we defined the different ways that PTs can interact with Medicare from a billing perspective. Today, we're going to hopefully answer the question, is it worth it? And you're going to have a better idea of yes or no in your mind by the end of the episode. And then in 2 weeks, we'll conclude this series talking about specifically some documentation, tricks and tips, setting your clinic up to be Medicare compatible, all those kind of questions and answers that you might have after you've already made the decision to accept Medicare. So first things first, many of you have questions of where do I learn all of this? I wish you all had a course or mentorship on this. We do. We do have an online business course. It's called Brick by Brick. It's taught by yours truly. It is an 8-week online course. All of these steps that we've talked about over the months and years on Leadership Thursday of how to start your own practice, how to get in network with insurance or get out of network with insurance are all answered inside of that course. So you can check that out. The next cohort of that starts in September. That's taught by me. We keep it small, just 15 people. Lots of time for questions, discussion, and helping you stay accountable on your way to opening your practice. So make sure you check that course out. Today, how do we know if Medicare is worth it for us? Multi-part answer. The first part is going to be something we've mentioned on here a lot on the podcast before of how much does it cost you to see a patient? You should have an idea of your expenses and what that equates to per hour per patient, and an idea of basically what it costs to keep your clinic open and see a patient for that hour. We know our number here at Health HQ. Those of you who have been in business a while, you know your number as well. Knowing how much it costs you to see a patient and how much money you want to make after that expense is going to let you know how much money you need to make per patient to meet your financial goals, to pay your bills, cover your expenses, and still have money left for yourself. So you need to know that number. The second number is a lot easier. It comes nice and easy from Medicare in the form of something called the physician fee schedule. This is published online every year by the federal government, and it tells you what you'll be paid per unit based on what code you're billing and where you live. It will also tell you what you'll get paid if you're a participating provider, if you're billing Medicare directly, or if you're a non-participating provider. If the patient is paying you cash and then you're submitting the claim on their behalf for them to then be reimbursed from Medicare. And if those are unfamiliar terms to you, again, go back to part 2 and review that because it's important that you know the difference between those two. So how much am I going to make? Looking at the physician fee schedule, again, it's published year by year. You can search code that you bill and you can tell it where you live. It differs by where you live because the government is trying to account for cost of living. We know it costs more money to live in a big city than it does a suburb or a rural area, and the government is trying to offset the cost of you doing business by giving you a few more dollars per unit when you live in a bigger city. So that's where you'll see the price fluctuations based on your geographic region. Some states, it's the same for the whole state. For some states, it's per big city in the state, and then it will say rest of whatever state you lived in. So for example, in Michigan, we have 2 geographic regions. We have Detroit Metro and rest of Michigan. So when you live in the Detroit area, you get a couple more dollars per unit from Medicare to see patients, knowing it costs more to run a business in the city than outside of the city. So that's called a MAC locality, a Medicare Administrative Center locality. So a good example here for an evaluation for a Medicare patient in Michigan, you will get $102.19 if you live in the Detroit area versus rest of Michigan, anywhere that's not Detroit, you will get $97.48. So you'll make about $5 more for that initial evaluation. So again, trying to offset that cost of living and pay a little bit more, knowing it costs more to run a business in a larger city. Those are the participating provider rates. Non-participating providers can be offered up to 15% more per charge if that state supports it. Not every state does. So that same example here in Michigan, as a participating provider living outside of Detroit, I would get $102.19 to bill an evaluation code. If I was a non-participating provider and I was submitting claims to Medicare for reimbursement for my patient to receive, I would get $106.50. So a couple more dollars, about $8 more total to be a non-participating provider than a participating provider. And the same is true for every code that you bill. So how do we know if it's worth it? Well, we go through code by code of the codes that we plan on billing Medicare, and we start to crunch the math on what does a normal visit look like? What does an evaluation with some timed codes look like? What does a regular follow-up visit with maybe 4 codes look like? So let's go through that math and you'll get an idea of kind of how much money can be earned through Medicare. So let's go through an example of I'm a participating provider. I'm going to bill Medicare directly. I'm going to bill an evaluation charge and 2 timed units. So let's say I see a patient, I bill that evaluation. I also bill a unit of neuromuscular re-ed, and I bill a unit of therapeutic activity. Physician fee schedule tells me exactly what I can expect to be paid. I can expect to be paid $97.48 for the evaluation, $35.65 for that therapeutic activity charge, and $32.74 for that neuromuscular re-ed charge. So I can expect to get $165.37 as a participating provider. That's me pushing a button, billing Medicare directly. I get paid. The patient doesn't pay me anything, maybe a copay later on. Now, what about that same exact scenario, but as a non-participating provider? Again, it pays a little bit more. Here in Michigan, I would get $106.50 for the eval. I would get $38.95 for the therapeutic activity. I would get $35.77 for the neuromuscular reeducation, and I would make about $181.22 for that evaluation. Seems like pretty good money. Now it's going to be less naturally for a follow-up visit, so let's look at that. Same example, now back to participating provider, a visit of 4 units. Let's say I bill a unit of manual therapy, I'm going to get $26.36. A unit of neuromuscular re-ed, I'm going to get that $32.72. And maybe I bill 2 units of therapeutic activity at $35.65 each for a total of $71.30. My total reimbursement expected for that visit is $130.40. Now flip back to non-participating provider. I submit the claim to Medicare for the patient to be reimbursed. The patient pays me cash. I'll get paid a little bit more for those same exact charges. $28.80 for that code of manual therapy, $35.77 for that code of neuromuscular re-ed, and a total of $77.90 for 2 units of therapeutic activity, a total of $142.47. So about $12 more is a non-participating provider. But again, I still have to submit that claim, and that patient has to pay me that amount in cash at the time of visit, and I get reimbursement later on. So that brings us to the question of, we can run this scenario till the end of time. We can go through any amount of codes, any variation of codes, and play with what can I expect to get per evaluation, what I can expect to get per treatment visit based on where I live and based on if I want to be a participating or non-participating provider, which now brings us to the question that everyone has when we have the Medicare discussion of, is this worth it for me to get enrolled with or to submit the claims for? Is it worth it for me financially? So that's only a question you can answer based on what we talked about earlier. How much does it cost you to see a patient? If you don't know that, you should know that. That's going to guide a lot of your financial decisions. And what is the amount that you can expect to be reimbursed for seeing that patient? Knowing what you get paid minus what it costs to see a patient minus whatever else you have going on, maybe you have a renovation loan to pay back, will get you at a final number of how much you can expect to have left over in the bank after seeing that patient. And to you, you need to make the decision of, that amount of money that I'm looking at in this calculation is worth it or not. A lot of people ask, why do we take insurance here at Health HQ? Well, we really only take 3 types of insurance. We take our state Blue Cross PPO, we take Medicare, and we take TRICARE, which are essentially more or less the same as far as reimbursement goes. We take those 3 insurances because they pay at or above what we charge for our cash rate. That's our determining factor for if we accept an insurance or not. So we don't accept any HMOs, we don't accept any regional or local payers, we don't accept auto or work comp plans, because in general, those all pay significantly less than what our cash rate is. And they usually, most of those also come with extra paperwork. We don't have any extra paperwork for Medicare. We don't have to do any authorizations. We don't have any extra paperwork for TRICARE. You don't have to do authorization. And we don't have any extra paperwork for Blue Cross PPO here. There's no authorizations or anything like that. So it's all electronic billing. It's very simple to bill that insurance and get paid by that insurance. And again, it pays at or above our cash rate, which is our determining factor of, is it worth it? That question of, is it worth it for me to take this insurance? Is it worth it for me to take Medicare? Going through this, getting out a spreadsheet, getting out a calculator, crunching some math. What does it cost you to see a patient? What are you getting paid per visit from your insurance companies? Is ultimately going to help you arrive at the answer to the question of, is it worth it? And again, that's a question only you can answer. Do you live in an area where you can bill more as a non-participating provider? Do you have the resources available to even submit claims electronically to Medicare? Because that's something you'll need to be able to do, whether or not you decide to be a participating or non-participating provider. And at the end of the day, is the amount of money per patient visit you're receiving satisfactory for you? And I think a question here specifically related to Medicare is also, if you aren't available and able to bill either participating or non-participating provider status with Medicare, you simply can't work with these patients for physical therapy. So if you have a passion with working for older adults, if you want to branch into this market, way back in week 1, we talked about, why do we care so much about this? Because it's about 1/3 of the adult population. And probably in the next 10 to 20 years, unless we start to have a lot of babies and people start to live significantly longer, then we maybe see that shift to maybe be half of all potential physical therapy patients in the country will be Medicare eligible. So if you want to serve this population, you need to get comfortable with billing Medicare and answering that question of, is it worth it for you? So I hope this was helpful. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll talk all the details of what exactly do you need to put in a note to be Medicare compliant. How much do you have to write? What do you have to write? What can trigger an audit? All those sorts of questions we'll answer in 2 weeks. If you have questions that we haven't answered yet about Medicare, leave them in the comments here on Instagram. Shoot us an email, post in the ICE Students Facebook group, whatever's easier for you to contact us, and we'll get those questions answered. I hope this is helpful. Have fun with Gut Check Thursday. Have a fantastic weekend. Have fun at an ICE course if you're going to be at a live course this weekend. Have a great Thursday. Bye, everybody.